Welcome, Sojourners. This is Jonathan with Sojourners Awake. Welcome to the Bookish and the Brave. This is a brand new campaign that we are starting at level 1. The classes that we have chosen are a Druid, Circle of the Stars, a Monk, Way of the Kinsei, and a Fighter, and undetermined at this point. I would also like to point out that the Monk is kind of going back and forth between open hand and Kinsei, but if you follow through to the end, you'll discover why he chose the path of the Kinsei. The Bookish and the Brave starts out in the city of Bochen that is completely a riff with rioting and confusion and revolution. The Sojourners are caught in the middle and they receive a mysterious letter that invites them to Bald Top Library, in a place where they can join an order, be safe from the revolution, and eventually turn the tides of the chaos in the world. You'll find out what their mission is in the upcoming adventures, but for now we pretty much just start right in the middle of the action. So I hope you enjoy the Bookish and the Brave. And so, our story continues. Beyond the illustrious and expansive Mavi Ocean, the shores of Tetherna greet the eyes. A city, consumed with industry, grinds with business, pushing out sailing vessels like seeds upon the sea, returning bounty and trade from far-off nations. Yes, the city of Bochen boasts high towers of magic and education, massive estates resting high upon the mountainside, and below in the streets beyond the protective wall, we see a layer of sprawling hovels for the people of labor to dwell. The city guard, the beholden, move in and out, busting up crime, but mostly interfering with the day of those who avoid taxation and tariffs. However, the Elithria tribe of elven descent grows old, and lacking in progeny those who remain in the city. For the elven offspring spawned of them either have fled the city seeking adventure, leaving behind the leadership, or somehow work for the criminal underground. And either way, the noble houses of the elvish care have begun to crumble. Sensing the insecurity in the political forces, criminal gangs and brackish faction leaders in the lower city rise to power, inciting violence and crime, with an aim to demolish the noble houses and reclaim Bochen for the common folk. Fires blaze, buildings fall, crime rises, and depending on who you speak with, justice and vengeance are at hand. And on the other hand, absolute desolation. All but the elvish houses of old have left the noble city. And in this upheaval, the city continues to maintain its trade, somehow even increasing its reach now that some of the noble tariffs have been cleansed away from the paperwork. City guards function at an all-time high of tension, and factions of merchants and factory workers attract the most vocal and violent of leaders. In this time, Shalal, a family friend of yours, has blessed you with the instructions. Arrive safely and unaccompanied at the abandoned Laughing Ghost Inn, just outside of town, upon the 14th of April, 1456. And smoke rises from Bochen. Henrik von Steeplebottom, you are awakening from your slumber to the raucous sound of windows breaking, a young woman screaming. You recognize the voice of Thelma, the lead maidservant, crying for mercy, Steel clashes upon steel and boots stomp upstairs. Take what you can and burn the rest. Earlier that night, before you laid down to sleep, how did we find you?
Henrik was he spent the day in the city that day. He often walks through the city and hands out food to people in need. Tries to encourage the folks that have been oppressed, and definitely hides his noble upbringing. So he came back from a long day out in the city and greeted each of the servants in the home, including Thelma, greeted his parents and his siblings, and then retired to his room to meditate and to practice what he had been learning, or what he has been learning at the monastery.
Earlier that day, passing out food and coin and supplies to a humble family living within the hovel, a woman with 6 children, her husband working away in the factories, producing cloths. An older woman begins to walk up to you. She's boisterous and loud, and obviously some form of a lady working the night. She comes up to you and says, "Hey there, you got any more coin for me, sir?"
Yes, here. And he hands her a few coppers, and he walks away quickly.
"Few coppers? Get back over here!" As you turn away and you walk further down the street, there's a few things that you're looking for. In this lower city, the ground is littered with garbage and trash, dogs picking up things in the street, night soil being tossed out the window. The smell is getting worse and worse as you're moving deeper into the heart of the lower city. Children running around completely caked in dirt and mud. No sense of order, but just simply surviving. A few cut purses and cutthroats come stumbling out of an inn drunk, flopping on the ground, waiting for the inn to open back up again so they can pursue their habit. What do you notice as you walk down the lower city of these streets?
Well, I'm always looking for folks that seem not only destitute, because most of the folks down here are destitute, but also without purpose, even if it's negative purpose. So those guys that are waiting to get drunk again, I typically leave those guys alone. But if I see a family cowering in the corner, or I see a person who is overly terrified or not confident, or doesn't seem to know where they should go or what they should do, those are the people I typically seek out and try to help with some food or with a few coins. I'm never giving away a lot of money. I make it very clear that I'm a monk and I don't have much, but I'll give you a little bit of what I have, even though it's not entirely true. And I don't say that out loud, but that's the persona that I communicate. Very soft-spoken and quiet, just going about my business. If you've all seen Greatest Showman, I think about the way that the lady that was disfigured handed the apple to him as he was sitting there in the street, and just very quietly handed him an apple with no expectations, and then I walk away. And that's kind of how I work it. So people recognize me and they know me, but in this part of town, they know me as the monk who hands out food and coin. But I'm always head on a swivel, looking for people that are actually causing trouble. I think again about the cut purses, but if they're drunk and laying on the ground, they're not a problem. So I'll walk past them. If I see somebody that looks like they're prowling in the dark, looks like they're looking for a target, then I may put myself in a strategic position to dissuade them.
You recognize someone here. He was here yesterday when you visited. Both his legs have been torn off at the knees, and he sits there with his cane, and he's got these small little mini crutches that he uses to press up on his body, and then he lifts his butt up off the ground and hobbles with these mini crutches. He's taking a rest in the area, and he gratefully accepts the apple from you. Father, you do a good thing. A very good thing. How are things in the upper city?
Things are in disarray, not like here, but they are not good. The city is struggling, upper and lower city. But you need not worry about the upper city. It is those of you down here that have much greater need.
Does he know you're from the upper city?
I doubt it.
Okay. Well, to be honest, I know these times I am much more worried about those in the upper city. The factions are rising and gang is increasing, and it's far beyond just simple kidnappings and purse cuttings. They're launching all-out raids. The riots are getting more powerful, and I know there are stockpiles of weapons that are building up. People are saying the noble houses are beginning to fall. What do you think will become of Bochen? I think it's already a done deal.
I imagine that if the noble houses do fall, there will probably be one that survives, and they will become a monarchy, or the leader of the rebellions will take over, and the town will become even more destitute and more under an iron hand. But that at this moment doesn't concern those of us down here. We're just trying to survive, aren't we?
Well, truth is, we have a little bit of a pool going, and it's funny you say that one noble house will survive. There's been some talk about that. We all have a couple bets placed on. Of course, the Basile family, they, we all know they're lowbrow criminals. Most likely they will survive. But also the Genasi family. They're the jewelers, the miners, the gem cutters. But I have seen with my own eyes, and I think everybody else has, they are part of the kidnapping, the assassination, and any forgery that takes place. The other houses, the Steeplebottoms, the Sopanas, the Throtons, the Cordons, they have no real power other than the trade. It's true, whoever has the military on their side, the Beholdens, but the Beholdens themselves are crumbling. We think the Basile family will survive. That's who I have placed my bets on. What about you, Father? Would you like to wager in a little bit in the pot?
My coins have more value elsewhere, but thank you.
As you turn away, he kind of, well, no, seriously, I want to know your opinion. Come on, if you have some inside information, I mean, you get around more than I do. And he points to his stubby legs.
Yes, well, that's most likely true, my friend. I don't know that I have an opinion. I hope that they would care for us either way.
He interrupts you. The noble houses will never care for us. It is best they all go away, at least. But I understand. I agree with you that at the end of the day, there will be one leader. We know it's not the elves. They're all running away or joining crimes. It will most certainly be the houses. Tell me, please, insider information. I make it good for you.
My inside information is we can't be concerned with things that we can't affect anything changes in it. We can only care for ourselves, and those noble houses, as you have mentioned, most likely won't care about us either way. So why don't we just stay concerned with taking care of each other and hope for the best.
Make your persuasion check.
17.
You see his eyes begin to brim with tears. He looks at the apple you have given him. You know, Father, it's people like you who keep my hope alive. If the world were full of more characters such as yourself, we would not be in the problems we're in. He puts out his hand to you in exchange for a handshake, a common greeting among fellow laborers.
Vaughn takes it for sure.
My name is Felix. May I have the honor of your name, Father?
I am called Vaughn.
Pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you, Felix.
Vaughn, you can tell in that moment you have gained a hard and fast ally here in the lower city of Bochen. His name is Felix.
Nice.
Later that night, you head up to your room, but not before visiting with your family. And all this is occurring before that fateful night in which your home is ransacked and raided. Between the salt air, the noise and the conflict that is brewing here in Bochen, we see Sterling Stargazer. You're in the middle of a purchase, the middle of a sale. You're collecting some travel goods in a simple general store. The merchant, a portly man with a large brown beard, mutton chopped at the side, with exposing his upper lip as he chews on a straw. As he just goes back and forth and shows you the best prices to deal, he says, "Wait a second." He looks at you curiously, and he looks at a couple of wanted posters on the wall. He says, "Do I know you?" He grins with an expectant mischievousness. Having never seen this man before, in the middle of purchasing some travel goods for a quick and upcoming journey, how do you respond?
No, friend. Yeah, many think they do, but no. I'm new to this place.
Yeah, you just have one of those faces, I see.
Yeah, you could say that.
He looks again at the wanted posters. Yeah. Well, travel's a bit hard. Might I ask where you're headed?
Wherever the winds take me. I'm just looking for wisdom, and these stones that you gave me are gonna be good. And if it gets hot out there, I'll just pop them in my mouth, stay hydrated. Just some good walking.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Well, the price has gone up a little bit here in Bochen since everything's occurred. So I'm going to ask you a little bit for more. I'm going to ask you for at least double the price. And what he's basically saying is all the rations and all the supplies that you have on your person are going to come at double the cost. So you have the option of cutting in half your supplies and rations or losing all your gold. And in this moment, you are positioned with the choice of giving up your gold or half your supplies.
Not needing much, he'll give up half his supplies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, go ahead and give up half of your supplies as you part with them, half the rations, and just randomly give up those things. Yeah, well, you don't need that, and you're not going to be able to pay for that. That's for sure.
Well, I heard that prices were getting better now, but obviously not here, so...
Yeah, well, what brings you to Bochen?
Oh, it's a little bit here, there's a little bit there, a little bit of that. I don't know, I'm just, seeing what's going on. I've heard there's a bit of a ruckus happening.
Yeah, mostly at night. We tend to close shop up a little bit early, and you can tell I got, bars on the windows. I mean, I understand the need for revolution and everything. There's got to be some change. I mean, I know I have barely, by the grace of the gods, been able to stay in business as long as I have. Just all the rioting and the fires that break out. I mean, basically what they're trying to do is hurt the nobles where it hurts the most by hurting the trade. I mean, I'm owned by a certain house and everything. I'm owned by the Slapana house. They want to hurt their business. They end up taking it out on us. I mean, I'm not saying it's great for everybody, but I've been able to make it. You just got to work hard and pray to the right people. You know what I'm saying?
Pay to the right people?
Pray to them. Oh, well. Well, yeah. Bribery and extortion go a long way. We'll just say that. But yeah, we do both, of course. And he kind of motions towards the statues and the icons of the various gods and their feats of valor and love and dignity. So as you get rid of half of your supplies, all of a sudden, a boulder crashes through the window. The merchant instantly ducks behind the counter and grabs a crossbow, and he looks at you and says, "Oh, it seems like the riding is starting a little bit early." But before that day, as you approached this shop to purchase supplies for your travel, how did we find you?
So before I was going to this particular shop, you found me standing on the side of the street, just looking at this big glass ball that he had around a necklace. He's staring at it and then looking up at the sky. He's looking through it, looking into the sky. Even though it's a bright daylight, he's just paying attention more to the sky than what's going on around him. And then he felt a pull to go to that store. He wasn't sure what it was, but he knew that he needed to visit something was going in there. So, he starts moving in that direction.
You hear cries out loud, "Sympathizer!" Torches launch into the shop through the opening in the windows. The merchant motions for you to duck and cover and begins to take aim at the door. Two women cry out in a loud voice. The arcanic magic builds up around them, and they launch a spell attack in this room.
They launch a spell attack towards the guy or
towards you.
Oh, okay.
First one hits you. Second one hits you. And the third one hits him. You take 5 points of magic missile damage.
Okay.
He gets hit with 2 on his shoulder, and he falls backwards, nearly knocking him unconscious. Those 2 bolts intended for him hit you square in the shoulder. How do you respond?
My first thing is to check on the gentleman, see how he's doing, and get in behind coverage with him.
He looks over at you and he said, his shoulder's just burning, he's bleeding. He said, "They're arcanists. I don't know what they're coming for. Like I said, I'm just on the wrong side." And he points towards an old flower vase near the icons of religious settings. And he says, "Grab that vase. Grab it. Bring it to me." It is well across the room.
Okay. From that point of view,
the women begin to step inside through the broken window.
So what you'll see Sterling doing is put his hand in his pocket and pull out some herbs and then crush them on the stones that he just bought. And he's going to cast Magic Stone on them and load them into his sling to cantrip. And so he's going to be ready to try and hit one and then run to the vase.
Go ahead and make your attack. You're going for
16.
That's a hit.
And he gets 10 points of damage.
Oh. Whoa.
Magic Stone puts my wisdom modifier as my attack damage now, so it plus a d6, and I rolled a 6.
As soon as she puts both hands on the bar of the window, she steps forward to leap on the side, and this missile, bam, hits her right in the forehead, and she flops up with her feet up in the air, falling to the ground. You hear one of the women call out, "Felina!" And she looks up at you, prepared to retaliate with a magic missile. You said you were moving towards the vase?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've lost your cover. 6 points of damage.
I'm down.
Okay. She grabs you by the shoulder. She holds on to you as you lie there on the floor. She says, "What is your occupation?"
The stars. The stars.
Slaps you across the face and says, "Speak!" And she's looking at your garments, your clothing. What does she notice about your clothing?
So the clothing is just common to get me to fit in, but underneath it, you'll see bits of flotsam, some wood that he's used to reinforce it, give himself some armor, as well as some strange shells covering the most vital of places to protect him. And if she looks really close, she'll see that his beard is slowly moving like it's in the ocean tide with an ebb and a flow.
She says, I know you're a magic man. She points towards her sister and says, bring her back. Use your powers and bring her back.
So with a word of healing, he'll say, by the power of the chalice. And he'll healing word her as a bonus action. And the starlight will settle on her and some waters will salve her injuries, and she'll be filled with 7 hit points.
Okay. Make your death saving throw.
It's an 8.
Your lights begin to go out. Make your second death saving throw.
It's 5.
Make a general charisma check.
Okay. It's a 14.
Okay. We see Sterling Stargazer flop on the ground, the energy of the magic missile cracking in his body. Fire begins to build up. You see the woman stand up quickly as Felina gasps to life. And she just says, the chalice, the chalice. Aurora rushes over to her, grabs her by the shoulders, picks her up and says, come on, let's get out of here. Then not before she looks back and launches a bomb in this area. The building begins to light up on fire. Sterling Stargazer, make your last death saving throw.
A 2.
Fire begins to build up all around you. Smoke, darkness, flickers of light. You hear the old man just moving ever so closely. He's pulling towards you, reaching for that vase. He slams his fist up against the wall, trying to use the vibration to knock the vase down. It shatters on the floor. Releasing a noxious gas, he preparedly covers his nose, knowing that this trap has been sprung. Part of the fire licks up around this gas and boom, a spark of blue smoke fills up the room. The glass shatters and a small piece of paper floats out. He grabs it with his hand. He lays next to you and he begins to pray. Your final words, Sterling, your final moments, lying there on the floor. What do we hear? What do we see? In this moment, what are you paying attention to?
So as Sterling is racked on the ground, as this force energy just pulses through his body, he sees the fire, he sees the darkness, and all his last thought is he doesn't get to know who his parents were. And he is finding himself kind of, even though he's inside, he instinctively wants to be outside underneath the stars. And he's going internally inside his mind and knowing what stars are currently above his location, and he's using that to give him solace as he's now happy to return to them.
The door kicks open. You see boots scuffling. A long woman's cloak is wrapped around your face. You feel yourself being drugged, pulled. Voices screaming, sympathizer, bombs going off, fireballs being launched, magic missiles breaking through windows, buildings being burned. We see Sterling lying in the middle of the street, bleeding, dying, fading into the stars. Smoke is rising. in Bochen. Welcome, Sojourners. This is Jonathan with Sojourners Awake. I had to stop right here in the adventure because I just wanted to say that was a heavy first session with my players. No, we did not plan that. I didn't fudge any dice. It just turned out that way that Sterling died on session 1. So if you're wondering how we get ourselves out of this mess, I really hope you continue listening and find out how the Sojourners managed to get out of Bochen that is aflame. If you're ever interested in more Dungeon Master tips, I hope you would take the time to go to www.sojournersawake.com. Check out my Session 0 course. It's available for download. Check out my Table Master course. It's one-to-one personal guidance where I help you build your campaign. Maybe you're a first-time Dungeon Master, or whether you're a long-term veteran, maybe you're experiencing some burnout and you just need some personal encouragement to get yourself back in the game. You should really check it out. And so our story continues.
Rock and roll.
We didn't have to make it that tough that quick.
My regulator is like a kid learning how to drive.
Right?
Not 90 an hour.
That's a nice backstory, though, Patrick.
Yeah, that's a good
Thanks.
backstory. Hawkins, Aurelius, Philodine, Idlehands. Fletcher looks across the desk from behind you, a mountain of papers. We cannot fill these orders in time, he says to you. I'm beginning to think the nobles do not plan to pay us. The general stillness outside this afternoon proves more eerie than the recent all-night attacks and cries of revolution you experienced just last evening. Both of you have been approached by the Beholden, the city guard, to generate enough ammo, weaponry, and armory to launch a massive stand against a supposed planned revolt against House von Steepleton. How do we find you? What are you paying attention to as you sit across from your business partner?
We are not in our normal workshop. A similar scene that we just saw with Sterling there happened a couple nights ago in our workshop. It was attacked, knowing that we have some ties to noble houses, that we've sold weapons to them before, and so we're kind of in a slum right now, hiding out in some unmarked building and continuing to try to work. And the tension is definitely high throughout the day. Every sound, we hear bombs and things going off in the distance, and it's frightening. It's troubling. So Hawkins is looking frazzled, I guess. On top of this, on top of trying to be a good employee, he now has instructions, right, to leave the city and how to do that. And so he's also dreading having to broach the topic of leaving Fletcher behind. So he's not being a very effective worker this day.
He too looks frazzled. Ruffles up his messed up hair. Begins to button some of his clothing that had come unbuttoned in all the stress of leaving earlier that week. He looks out the window nervously. Things are not better here. We need a better plan. I do not think they will be paying us. And especially since we've moved, it now just makes us look more and more like the revolution.
You're right, of course. I really think that you ought to leave the city. I think
Where and go to where? The wildlands? We will certainly die out there.
there's got to be some noble house that you could stay with? Somebody we've done business with before, that could support us at least for a little while?
Make a persuasion check.
Oh, natural 20. For a total of 20.
Okay. All of a sudden, he just shuts the window, and says, "Wait. But you're right. Wait a second. It's always easier. It's always more difficult to hit a moving target. We have moved from one place to the other. This actually makes sense. We could, I think I have an uncle who has a friend of mine who owes my family a favor. We could always stay out in the cottage there and move all our stuff there. Wait until all of this craziness subsides. We could, yes, I think this might work." You see that he's beginning to believe it was his idea to begin with and starts making plans out loud that he has been wont to do, leaving you behind in your thoughts. And all of a sudden you hear a knock at the door. And before you can answer, the door is opened.
Hawkins stands up, afraid of whatever's coming.
Here stands before you an imposing figure, cloaked, stepping unexpectedly through this door. The door closes, and he quietly removes his hood to reveal a black mop of curly hair, a proud, neatly trimmed beard. His pale white skin sports a long scar across his eye. Lord Basile of House Basile is not known for making public appearances. He slams down a load of coins at your feet and says, 100 gold pieces for your generous participation. Before you can speak, he says, make 2 shipments, one full of weapons, and he looks around this derelict area, wiping his fingers on the dirt and smudge. I suppose this will do. One full of weapons which stays here, in this safe place. And the other shipment full of gravel, excrement, anything heavy. Deliver that to the beholden. And the other 100 will be delivered to you upon completion. Do you have any questions? This powerful crime lord / noble family leader, playing both sides of the game, looks at you with no bodyguards present. Though he's a tall man, there seems to be no weapons upon him. Fletcher is nearly pressed up against the wall like a fly caught in a trap. How do you respond, Hawkins?
Normally Fletcher would handle direct interaction with customers of this magnitude. But seeing that he is against the wall and not doing anything, Hawkins will take a tentative step forward and say, well, we understand, no questions, but you surely it's not safe for you to be seen here.
You're assuming that I am being seen. It's kind of you to take notice, small man. Are you always this caring for your customers?
Well, I'm also concerned that if you are seen here, then maybe this won't be a safe place anymore.
Convenient for me. It would have been more difficult for me to meet you in your office. But since you've relocated your business on my territory, this is my playground. How kind of you to come to me.
Very good, sir.
Are you going to ask me if I had my oatmeal this morning, too?
No, sir. Sorry, sir.
He eyes you narrowingly, wondering if you are going to make good on your deal. He casts Zone of Truth. Please make a charisma saving throw. Wisdom.
Being a gnome, I have advantage on mental saving throws against magic. And that's going to help a lot. That's a 17.
You were able to resist this thanks to your gnome cunning, and you were also able to simultaneously put on a deceptive face. And you can sense exactly what he was doing, almost as if before the spell left his lips, he was muttering something under his tongue without you noticing. And you saw in his cloak, his fingers began to gently move into the magical weave, manipulating it like fingers upon a harpsichord. Familiar enchantment music begins to illuminate your ears, and you can see Fletcher just shaking his head and the words about to come out of his mouth being nothing but truth and truth alone. But you, how do you resist this?
Hawkins is, he feels the pressure of the spell on his mind, but his determination to protect Fletcher, who's helped him an awful lot, and his determination to keep himself safe lets him persevere under that pressure.
So once again, Basile asked you, as we stopped in that moment, his question still lingering in the air. Do you plan to make good on your deal?
We will, sir. There's a chance that we may have to relocate again, but
Fletcher,
we will...
Fletcher then interrupts. We're getting a country house. Basil rolls his eyes. It's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy the lower city. He moves silently. The shadows creep up around him and cling to him. You watch the shadows leave the corners of the room and stick to his skin, and he becomes dark as night itself. The door closes without any kind of gesture from him, as it was a dog following along, slams shut. Fletcher falls to the ground. This is not good. We are now indebted to a crime lord. He clings to you and says, we must go.
I absolutely agree. This 100 gold that he gave, that ought to be enough to get materials to stockpile while we're out of the city. And so that when things settle down a bit, well, it's probably not safe to come back, but at least we could, you, sir, could have an inventory to sell.
Fletcher, not being able to really put anything together at this point, makes himself something to eat, takes down for a quiet nap. We return to Vaughn. Back at House Von Steeplebottom. Vaughn, you're walking up the stairs after a long day of work. You've also managed to catch up on your chores here in the noble house as well, pulling a moonlight shift back and forth between your nobility pressures and your work as a monk. As you reach that last step, and you know this because your father always waits until the last step up the stairs before calling out your name. Henrik?
Yes, father.
You turn around and he's at the bottom of the stairs waiting for you to come back down.
I go.
When you arrive there, he begins walking, surveying the land, going back and forth between the dining hall and the main house and the hallway and the library and all the way back to the garden and eventually back to that same staircase. Henrik, you are been out for a while. I trust you are getting plenty of duties done.
Yes, father. I was in the lower city. I was interacting with some of the folks that are trying to keep the trade going and ensuring them that we will support them as the noble family that we are, and that there's nothing for them to be concerned about as far as us holding up our part of the business.
We already have emissaries, Henrik. I employ people with my hard-earned money and our family's money to go into the very specific places of the lower city. Quite simply, that is not your job.
Yes, Father, I know, but I took this initiative because someday I will be replacing you, and I need to know all the inner workings of what we do.
But that is not the way to lead. You are not to put your hands in the dirt. You are to supervise the ones who put their hands in the dirt. All they need to know is that you are in charge. It does not matter if you understand the inner workings or if you know how to do the job. How many times have we had this conversation?
Many times, Father.
I don't want to see you moving out and about like some rogue noble son. You don't even understand what other people are saying. They believe you are planning a coup, a mutiny. They are talking that you are leading a life of crime, that you are going off with the elves in search of adventure. What I need is for you to be here. Keep this house warm if you want to take over the duties.
I hear you, Father. I will do better.
You will change your ways, is what I am saying. Are we clear on that?
Yes, Father.
Well, it is no mind. Halal has made our family an opportunity, actually. You will be going to Bald Top Library. The reason I gave you the lecture is because I do not want you to do the same thing you did there as you have done here, when you should be here taking care of the manor, off doing your own things. You should be there at Bald Top Library. And be there. Not taking care of every injured animal that is getting in your way. You can. And then he starts to soften a little bit and he touches your shoulder as if he's trying to sympathize with you and speak in a language that perhaps you understand. Vaughn, you can't help everyone.
You've never called me Vaughn before. Thank you, Father. I will represent our family, and I understand what you're saying, and I will help those that I can help without losing an understanding of who I am and who I represent. What will you do, Father?
I will continue to manage things here until your return, of course. The mission at Bald Top is very prestigious and will provide you some level of protection until the conflict here in Bochen subsides. The Beholden are doing fine. They are actually getting in a shipment of armory and weapons from the Fletcher and Hawkins company. It'll be fine. We will make our stand here and they will protect us. It'll all work out.
When do I leave, Father?
First thing in the morning. You are to go secretly alone. Halal will meet you at the Laughing Ghost Inn. It's abandoned. It's quite safe, though. It's been used often as a safe house for nobility to escape.
I understand, Father.
Good.
I will be packed up and ready to go in the morning.
Appreciating your concise answer, he nods and quietly walks away. And as you head to your bedroom, Thelma drops a load of laundry. Picking it up, she says, "Oh, hey there, Vaughn. Good to see you. Welcome home."
Hi, Thelma. Thank you.
You head off into your bed and you prepare yourself for that night. And as you're making the nightly preparations, what are you noticing? What do we see around your room? And if you could, give it a description of your appearance.
So, Vaughn would have changed back into his noble clothing before he came back into the manor. So he empties his bag, he takes out his monk's robe, and is organizing his things in the locker so that if any family members were to walk in, they wouldn't see that clothing. He smiles to himself because although Vaughn is a nickname that some people around the house have called him because he's Henrik, like his dad, and he's the sixth, and some people need nicknames. He'd never heard his father call him anything but Henrik, and so he understands that his father is listening to other people, and what his father doesn't know is that Vaughn is the name he goes by outside of this home when he's not doing diplomatic errands. So he kind of smirks to himself, realizing the irony in his father calling him Vaughn for the first time, and he smiles. And then he gets real serious. His room is what you would expect in a noble's room, but if you look around the room, you realize that most of the things that a noble would use haven't been touched for a while. He dusts them off to make sure that it keeps up the appearance that he's acting like a nobleman, but really, upon close inspection, you would realize that the noble clothing that he wears and is pretty much the only thing that gets used in that room, and the bed. And so Vaughn puts his stuff away, gets organized for his journey tomorrow, which is just a few small things. His weapon, he puts his signet ring in the bag. He has his papers, and then of course in the bottom of his bag he has a few things that he uses when he goes out hunting, rope and different things like that. And he lays his sword across the top and puts it all in the chest, and then sits on his bed to contemplate what tomorrow brings and this new journey that he's been eagerly anticipating since he heard about it from his mentor at the monastery.
Sterling Stargazer, your body is laid in a basement. There are skeletons hanging upon the wall, and a woman with a large band of flowers wrapping around her hair, beautifully smooth skin, but with an ageless presence on her body. Her thin, wiry, elven frame stands hunched over you, her long, slender fingers playing the music of the weave, slowly whispering, "From beyond, speak with dead. Understand the things in their head." And in the corner, a large, imposing figure, a man with a pale skin and scar across his face. "Proceed." She casts Speak with Dead upon your body. And from the ether, from the land of specters and ghosts, while waiting for the judgment of the afterlife, we find you conscious. What does it feel like to be dead?
For Sterling, it's a lot like being in the ocean, just kind of free floating, just no real current or path, just going along where it's taking him. And instead of things that he would see under the ocean of corals and sunken ships and these things, he just sees flashes of his life, of what it's been like, and moments where he had stepped up or moments where he had shied away, and just but in all of those he's still seeking that one memory that he doesn't have.
You hear a feminine elven voice. It sounds like starlight. And she says, "Hello from the world. I assume you can hear me. Tell me, dead one, what were you doing?"
I don't know. I was told to go to that store, and I don't know now. It all happened so quickly. I was just buying supplies. I had an invitation, and I was... none of that matters now.
Speak the truth, dead one. Whom do you work for?
I worked for the Delvers of the Deep, the Sea Elves, the Maranthorn.
Do you have a plan to return to the Delvers?
Well, I've been invited to Boldtop Library. I mean, I had. I have to return eventually. Yes, I plan to go back.
Does anyone know you're here?
Only Kondo-san. No one else.
We see Sterling's cold body twitching, his mouth moving these words, gasping them as best as his corpse can do. The elven woman finishes the ritual and she nods to Lord Basile. My liege. He pulls back his hood once again and runs his hands through his mop head, revealing 2 horns. He says, "He is the one. Bring him back. It is expensive. Then let's just say he is in our debt. Take him outside the city." "With pleasure, my lord." The woman pulls back her hair and she takes off a necklace, revealing an incredibly large diamond. She begins to pressurize it with her hands and lightning sparks. She begins to laugh and cackle with glee at the amount of magical energy surging through her body. Her veins begin to glow with crackling green energy, and she places both her hands on your chest, Sterling. And you, once floating in this ethereal plane, looking at ghostly images of beyond and times of ancient past disappearing, you see a bright light, a beautiful star. You hear a voice, Kellamvor, the god of judgment, say, "Sterling, you are net." And before he can finish that phrase, your body is ripped from that plane and you feel yourself being turned inside out, and you awaken in the mud outside the city, the rain falling on your face. A boot stomps over you. A man places his hand on your chest. He has a large brown beard and bright blue eyes with a young face. He looks back and forth and picks you up and says, Can you walk?"
I can try.
"You look like death warmed over, friend."
I warmed over. I did.
"Come on, Halal is waiting." He says, "I am Haleth."
Hi, Hollis. I am Sterling.
He looks at your star stones, and as he's moving you along with one arm over your shoulder, with your arm over his shoulder, he says, "You're telling me you didn't see this coming?"
I'm still learning, friend. I'm still learning a lot.
Halal and you limp towards as the rain begins to pour more, your boots sloshing in the mud, and you see an old, decrepit, condemned wooden building with the sign still hanging above it, the Laughing Ghost Inn. And where the word laughing was placed, there's been some graffiti drawn through of some young teenage boys, the Howling Ghost, the Whining Ghost. Over time, just word after word has been replaced and scratched through until one idiot put the Laughing Ghost, and the name just stuck again. He pushes open the door and you see Halal, the man who had previously given you those papers, making a cup of tea by the fire. And for the first time, you sense warmth in this old, abandoned, ghostly inn. In this room, what are you paying attention to, Sterling, considering all that you have been through?
So the hearth looks nice, the warmth. He'll go sit by that, and like a little light layer of steam will just come off his body. And he's just looking into the fire and looking into his starstone. And he's paying attention to the tea that he's making. And it smells good in this room. It's quite herbaceous and strong. He definitely needs something to warm up his insides after that harrowing ordeal. But he is definitely paying attention to that learned man who he's come to respect.
Halal says, "Oh, Sterling, you made it. Thank you, Hoth. Well done. Please, let's get you warm and well fed. Take this food. It is nourishing and healing for your body and your soul."
Thank you. I think I died. That was new. I've never had that before. Do people die a lot over here?
Halaf, where did you find him? He was in the woods and just walking by. A crow told me, a bird told me. Squirrel spoke of a man lying in the dead. I figured it was him, and he just didn't make it through the city. What do you remember?
I remember being in a store and being attacked. I knew that it was bad. I didn't know how bad, and I tried to attack back, but then just pain. Just pain.
He was by himself. Did you look for tracks? No, I did not. I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse me. My younger brother, Haleth, is not as experienced. We apologize. We should have taken greater precautions. I fear that someone may have dropped you out here outside the city. If you don't mind, I would like to examine your mind, your body, but after you recuperate, and after your sojourners arrive, they'll be here shortly. God's willing.
Good. By the looks of it, I'm gonna need some people to help me out.
Sterling, we always need to stay together. We always help each other out. That's what you'll find about working with the Bookins. Bookins they work together to hold the knowledge and the truth intact, to preserve the purity of intellect and wisdom. They work together. We always do. Isn't that right, Haleth? Yes, brother.
This is Bookish and the Brave, a production of Sojourners Awake. Thank you to my players, thank you to Dungeons & Dragons, and thank you to Tabletop Audio for their wonderful background music and ambiance. Stay tuned to find out what happens to Vaughn, Sterling, and Hawkins, how they come together as Sojourners, and how their story begins. And as always, may your story continue.